So you guys, big pod. We have finally, we've been teasing Pran for weeks, but we are releasing the Pran interview on this pod, the CEO of PWR, the world powerhouse of pickleball. It is going to be big. 2025 is going to be huge. We recap all of nationals.
A lot of drama at nationals.
All the drama and all the new paddle talk. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't miss a chance to talk about paddles.
Which paddle companies are saying no thank you to the UPA certification, which are in. It is an exciting time.
It's Pod 54.
Is it going to be international war?
You tune in now to this pickleball life. I'm K-Dubs and Jilly B's my wife. She's the pro and I've got the filler. She's sweet to me, but on the court she's a killer. Unadulterated and efficiently bringing you the best and worst things in PB. Tell your friends and stay for another. And no one loves us more than your mother. One thing's for sure, when hit and you're addicted. Grab a pile, grab a court, don't resist it. So click subscribe, let's go, let's get cracking. Theme song done, let's go, let's get laughing. This pickleball life.
It's Pod 54, Kristen. Is it
going to be international war?
All right. So here we are, obviously in our new, almost finished podcast studio. It wouldn't be a This Pickleball Life pod if we were not in a different location with a different setup every single time we did this pod.
True story. We were roaming the aisles of Home Depot like good lesbians do. And we walked past some AstroTurf and Jill was like, I think that would be good on the wall. And I was like, is there a different kind of AstroTurf when you put it on a wall than on a floor? And you said,
what'd I say?
The AstroTurf doesn't know where it's going. And I was like, true. Can't argue that logic.
All right, so we're thinking about a neon sign in the back. That looked pretty
good.
But
what if when they are looking at this, there already is a neon sign and they don't realize that it's a fake neon sign? Now you just burst their bubble.
If you're saying I get to save money by you superimposing a neon sign using Canva and we don't have to buy a neon sign, I am all for it.
Is $12.99 a month. Well, thanks to everyone who got us over the 5K mark.
Subscribers on YouTube.
Are we going to surpass your LinkedIn followers on YouTube this year?
We're in Newport Beach. That's right. Kristen and I have decided to test the boundaries, the limits of our marriage, and we have moved into my childhood home with my mother. And if you didn't know by the new setup that we were somewhere different and in Newport Beach, well, you will know that by my outfit, because when I am in Newport Beach, I am very confused. I do short shorts on the bottom and then a long sleeve and a vest on the top. If you don't know, now you know. That would only be completed by Ugg boots.
Whereas I am just wearing pajamas.
All day.
Just kidding.
Every day.
But really, what is the difference between pajamas and shorts? You tell me.
Our cats are acclimating. Thank you so much for asking, you guys. And we have two. We brought Toby, the orange guy, Bomber, the black beauty, and Striper found a new home.
We just opened the window on the way here.
Just threw Striper out.
Bye-bye.
No,
good luck.
Striper is with our dear friend Tulane. And Striper is like a one cat household. Have you ever had a pet that like should be the only pet in the house and like hates all the other pets? That's Striper. So now she's living her best life with our friend Tulane.
Yeah.
Who is fully allergic, but loves the cat so much she's getting allergy shots. Tulane, amazing. I will pay for your allergy shots. Thank you so much.
True love.
True love.
True love indeed.
All right, you guys, we're going to talk all things drama at nationals shortly. But first, if you're looking for a under $25 stocking stuffer gift, and you have yet to try Hessicore, or you've tried Hessicore and you love it and you're like, dude, what do I get like all the players in my group for Christmas or the holidays, Black Friday coming up? Guys, shop.hessicore.com. You can use code JillyB for a discount. I have yet to meet someone who has told me they regret that. It is better grip, better comfort, less wrist pain, and I play better.
I mean, there's really no reason not to. Plus, they last for so long. You can keep using them over and over, whereas a regular grip wears out and you got to get a new one.
Well, fun fact, I always feel bad when someone's like, I need 3. I have 3 paddles. And I'm like, oh, I just reuse mine. Like I get them for free. I reuse mine. I just take it off and put on the other paddle.
I was actually going to say they should check out the guide for which Hessicore to purchase. If you're confused about, the different textures and sizes, we made an entire how to pick your Hessicore video. I will link in the description.
Love it. You guys, before we kick this pod out, we have a very exciting announcement. I am going back to Trace Palapas. That's right. And who is joining us this year but Scott Crandall himself, the MLP Coach of the Year and co-host of our other podcast, The Pickleball Breakdown, is coming to Trace Palapas. We only have 64 spots. It is going to sell out probably in the next 10 days. And if you are listening to this podcast, you actually get 5 days ahead of everyone else before it goes to the general public. So Kristen?
Well, I don't know about 5 days, but
3
depends
by
on
the
how
time
long
we
it takes
publish
me to
this.
edit this. Point being, you must be a subscriber to the blog in order to get the discount code. So head over to Jill's website, jillianbraverman.com or jillybpickleball.com, and subscribe on the Trace Palapas page or the homepage, and you will receive the code for early bird pricing and access to Trace Palapas 2025.
And you'll get about a 3-day head start on the general
Some
public.
amount of head start. 3 hours, 3 days.
No, it'll
way to
probably
know.
be 3 days.
So head to the website, jillybpickleball.com, and subscribe on the homepage or on the Trace Palapas information page, and you will receive a discount code and a link for early access.
If you love tacos, sunshine, margaritas, and getting way better at pickleball, plus K-Dubs and me, this is a no-brainer, you guys. October 25th through the 29th, 2025. Did we play nationals?
Did we?
Did
was
we?
that this week? It's like at once yesterday and also 2 years ago.
Did I win nationals?
Crazy.
Let's go.
It is amazing how we talk about this all the time, right? Winning is a byproduct, and you cannot put all your eggs in the outcome basket, and how you get to the event and it goes the way you want it to and you walk away with the victory. How did it feel?
Well, I got gold in women's with Megan, and that was really nice to end what I thought was a really good year for us strong. To honor the work that we had done this year together.
That's a good way to put
if that makes sense.
Jill and I always have a saying, put out the art you want to see in the world.
For sure.
So whether that comes to videos we produce or podcasts or just the way we play, you just want to exude the art that you want to see in the world. And I do believe that sports is an art. And I think that that's a part of it is hey, we just put it out there, and that's what the outcome was.
Well, I think I told you before I stepped on the court in my first mixed match, I was like, I just want to be the person I'd want to watch, like a kid would want to watch and be like, oh my gosh, that person's fun to watch. They're smiling. They got hit in the chest. They're laughing. Pickleball is joy. It really, really is.
Yeah.
And so I think, so I got gold in women's, bronze in mixed, and it was just a ton of drama from the very, 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 very first match, which
to the
was
very, very, very end, where 7 different people asked if I was your mother. Just
That's funny.
Drama.
So literally 7 people went up to Kristen, and at one point she was like, are you guys all together or something? Because they were asking if Kristen was my mother.
Well, the first person asked if I was your mom, and I was like, whatever, just let it go. I didn't correct her. I didn't really say yes. And then when 5 more people asked me the same question, I was like,
are you guys all together?
Maybe she confirmed for them that was the case. So clearly need to hit up that SPF a little harder.
Okay, so I don't know if I told you this or not, but in full circle, I was watching my sister play an NVZ local tournament last night, and she was playing with a 17-year-old named Madison, and a woman watching them play asked me if they were mother-daughter, and I said no. And then the woman asked me if I was the mother. Of who? Of my sister or the 17-year-old? We'll never know. Maybe both. Maybe she thought I was a mother to both. My sister's 5.5 years older than me. No big deal. I am not personally offended.
I think in your case, it was the bonnet.
Oh, I was in my grandmother incognito bonnet. We'll put a photo of that up. So back to nationals. It was drama from the first minute. So Eric Onsens and I played mixed together. We've had some success together playing before. If you've listened to the pod, he's the son of Jaime Onsens. And I just can't say enough good things about Eric.
Wait. You're way too multilingual to pronounce that J that hard.
Jaime.
No. It's Jaime. You got to get the Brazilian j.
Okay, well, Portuguese is not one of my 3 languages.
I know, but like if you combine Spanish and Italian, you basically get Portuguese, right?
Jaime. No, that still wasn't it. All right. Mr. Onsens.
There you go.
Father Onsens. So yeah, drama started with our first match where the male partner was there. It was an 8 a.m. start time, which, by the way, I thought we had a bye and we were going to play at 8:30. So I ended up warming up. Yeah, it was like a
weird play-in. Everyone has a bye except situation.
Anyway, so there was like even drama with that I got like our start time wrong and we started warming up late. So the male opponent is there and he says to us, my partner wasn't feeling very well. She's going to be 20 to 30 minutes late. And I say to the referee, like,
what do those 2 things have to do with each other also?
Like, what's the rule here? And the referee looks at me and goes, well, it's up to the tournament director. And the tournament director said because the entry fees were so high, he wants to make sure she plays. And Eric and I look at each other. We're like, what like universe are we living in? Because we come from a tennis background and you come from a golf background where you're a minute late and the penalties start to commence.
Totally. I was in a tournament called Q School that costs $5,000 and my like membership had paid for it. And I showed up to the tee late because it was like a 12-minute walk from the driving range. And I got a 2-stroke penalty because I was 30 seconds late. And I would have gotten DQ'd if I hadn't had my putter and balls in my hand.
Oh, because you have to have a club, you have to have equipment ready
because
to.
My caddy was even further behind. Yeah. Wow. So harsh.
So Eric and I ask for the tournament director, and I basically ask why they're not enforcing USA Pickleball rules. And again, it was the answer about like the tournament entry fee. And I was like, are we living in like a parallel universe here where, and my point to them was like, I could have slept in an extra 30 minutes. Like,
where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line here? And then I said, well, if someone has a Ernie fault or a kitchen violation, is that up to like the tournament director? Like what rules are malleable versus we go by USA Pickleball rules? And I was genuinely like trying to understand.
Also, parallel universe, like 8 months ago, where you played singles at the same venue and we were almost going to be late and we were like speeding, hustling. I dropped you off, like threw you out of the car. You sprinted. I sprinted.
I didn't even get a warm up. I showed up on the court and I literally did the coin toss and I started playing.
So crazy.
So long story short, there's 3 referees, the tournament director, and the referees have to explain to the tournament director like how ridiculous this is. Because all the refs, I mean, they're there because they know the rules and the rules are the rules. So they end up defaulting the player who didn't even make it within 30 minutes. And so this male opponent says to me, oh, I hope you're happy, Jill. I hope nothing bad happens to you.
That's so nice. He didn't want anything bad to happen to you.
Like, I don't even know this dude's name. And look, I didn't make your partner late for the biggest tournament of the year. Like, this isn't on me.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
so crazy.
I was like, oh my God, people just like don't know how to deal with like conflict or anger. And I hope nothing bad happens to you.
So yeah, did anything bad happen to you?
Thanks for the well wishes. I won nationals, mother.
Did he know that you were going to lose to the number 1 seed? Oh no.
Oh, at one point he says to Eric, which I didn't hear, he goes, what's the problem, man? You're going to kill us anyway.
Yeah, so funny.
First off, this guy beat Eric in singles, right?
Literally, it's the same person who had just played Eric the day before.
So he beat Eric in singles, so he can play. And he has a mod. And like we should just discount our opponents? Like I've never walked on the court in my life.
Fact check, he had a Gearbox sweater on, so I'm going to assume he was playing Gearbox.
Okay, we'll fact check that. He had a Gen 3 paddle. I can't remember if it was a Gearbox or a mod. It was one of them. And to say like, well, what's the deal? You're going to kill us anyway? Like, I've never walked on the court one time in my life where I've been like, I'm just going to steamroll these people. Like, who thinks like that? Like, never underestimate your opponents.
No, actually, it was funny because not to jump ahead, but you did have a pickle in the gold medal match final.
Yeah.
You had an 11-0. And I turned to Megan's coach, DK, and was like, this is when I'm my worst. I'm up 8-0, and I just let off the gas, and I start feeling bad for my opponent. So I'm like, oh, no, I want them to have a good time,
And didn't he, like,
too.
yell at you?
He was like, no. It's like, yeah, this is why I'm on the bench.
No, you just don't come from a tennis background. The equivalent would be like
there is that version in golf, and it also was my detriment.
The equivalent in golf would be like, so you birdie 15, you birdie 16, you birdie,
and then I double bogey 18. Yeah, I do that.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you have to keep shooting for birdie when you get to 18.
Definitely do that.
All right, so we move from that drama to a different type of drama. So our next round, I don't want to say eke out, but it's the beginning of what is to be a theme of all of nationals, which is I win in 3 games. Like, yes. Brutal. Like, we're playing Daria Walczak and Rio, a young up and coming player on the APP, and probably hits the ball harder than anyone I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think you literally only had 2 matches go 2 games the whole week.
Lost one of them.
Yeah.
And one was the finals in women's.
So Rio definitely was playing a mod.
So Rio played a mod, and it's one of those drives that are so fast and so hard. And the problem is it's low. It's easier to kind of get out of the way of it when it's high and you can duck. But when it's like low and at the center of your body, it is really, really hard to get out of the way. So eventually we lose the first, and Eric looks at me and goes, we have to switch sides. You have to play the left. Well, I got to get in front of Rio, and we just have to give them a different look. And he just kept saying that to me. We have to give them a different look. And Eric's younger than I am considerably and relatively new to pickleball compared to me. And I have to give him props because I never would have suggested it, because I felt like we could figure it out. And it's like the second he said that and the second we switched, it was just so easy. We just won the next game and the next game.
Yeah, that was a great power of manifestation on my part. I was thinking that, but I didn't say anything. So I'm just that good. But really, you mentioned that one of the great things about Eric on the right is he has that high backhand spank. You know, he's really got a lot of power.
Well, my issue with putting
snap.
So here's my issue with putting a guy on the right when I play the left. They have to still play the right like it's the left. So they have to have a really strong, usually one-handed backhand or one-handed Tommy. So like when I play with Brandon French, his best shot's his Tommy. So it's like he has a forehand in the middle. And Eric Onsen's backhand is sickening. And so he was one of the only other players than Brandon with whom I've played who could play the right like it's the left. And I could still give him a lot of space, right? He would come over and protect my right foot. So it's like just the inverse photo.
Right. You still want that 40%, 60% going from the right, coming from Eric's side.
Yeah.
So that he's covering all those.
It also did 2 other things. So it took Rio's attacks out of play, right? Because go beat up on Eric. Like, Eric has great hands. And then it did one other key thing. Daria's roll forehand dink is sickening. And if I can cut it off, great. It's not going to hurt me. Same thing like with an Allison Harris roll dink. But if it bounces and I'm not fast enough to ATP, I'm in like trouble. I'm on my back foot. Eric is so long, he could cut all of those off before they bounce. So it took away like her best skill on the right, took away Rio's best skill, his attacks, and put me in a really comfortable spot. And it's like those 3 changes just changed the complexion of the whole match. And it's, again, kudos to Eric.
And there is something to be said about if a guy is covering the middle from the right and he's tall like Eric and he's cutting those dinks off in the air, he's already in position. Part of the struggle sometimes with a girl on the right
they gotta move.
Is you're like, well, I'm leaving you space. Yeah. And I'm trying to catch it in the air, so I don't want to crowd you.
Yeah, he like almost didn't have to take a step.
Yeah, he's like, I'm already here. Come at me.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another thing, if you guys didn't catch that, is just how important it can be to catch those spinning top spin shots of any kind in the air, if at all possible. This happens a lot.
Cut it off.
When people are on that cross court roll backhand from the baseline, hitting a third. And you have told me this all the time when we're playing together, like in the air, in the air, in the air.
Cut it off.
A lot of times people are like, oh, let me let it bounce. And then by that time, it's completely behind your foot. You're out of position. You're trying to flick it. And
so
it's so much easier to just get a paddle on.
Skill when I played Annalie and Catherine at the Masters last year. And I had never seen such heavy dinking in my entire life. And I left that match being like, oh, if I let that bounce, I'm dead. I'm literally dead. Yeah. And that was cross-court backhands with Annalie. Mm-hmm. And again, like you can't see on TV how heavy those the dinks are. Like dinks look so stupid. Like even when I'm watching live stream, I'm like, what's going on here? But I know how heavy all those dinks are.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, fun fact. So we make it through after switching sides.
Yep. And then we go into the literal craziest match of my life.
Yeah, that was a little too entertaining. It was funny though, because when we walked up to the Rio match, my uncle was with us and he was like, so is this going to be a good match? And I was like, I hope not.
So we go into the quarters against Eric Lang and Jana Newell, who play together all the time. They play on the same MLP team. And we have 4 game points in the first and we lose it 11-13. We go into the second game and we go down 7 match points. And on one of the match points, I hit a tweener cross-court dink that maybe we'll play it here, but it wasn't like intentional to look cool. And
Are your tweeners ever intentional?
No. Well, yeah, when I speed them up.
Okay.
But otherwise, it just means like poor footwork, literally. Or it's easier. Or it's like
a behind the back. When Jay DeVilliers does a behind the back, he's not like, ooh, this is a good opportunity. He's like, oh, crap, that's behind me.
But if you watch it, it probably, you can tell if you really watch it that it's like, oh, yeah, like she was moving and the angle the ball was coming at, like it literally is just easier for me to put my paddle behind me. So I hit this tweener cross-court dink on match point. We win that point and we defend, like I said, 7 match points. We go into a third. And we end up obviously closing it out in the third. And what I love about this match is when I watch it back, I am pretty much laughing the whole time. And I'm getting like body bagged every 4 seconds between like Eric and Jana.
I did put a body bag in your reactions video. I'll have to put back in here.
Well, I just feel,
it was that match, but
I just felt really like present. Like when they told us after the match, we were down 7 match points. I looked at Eric, I was like, did you know that? He's like, no. I'm like, I had no idea. It was just point by point.
What are you going to do? You know, just get the ball over the net one more time.
That's true.
I wonder if our listeners play differently when they are down match point and who feels like that helps them or who feels like that hurts them. Because there's something to rising to the occasion, seizing the moment, like pressure is just air in the tires, like finding that adrenaline push to do something superhuman. But there's also like, hey, how do you play the game? Play the game. Hit your shots. Hit your targets. Stick to your guns. Trust.
The other interesting thing about the match point was Eric and I defended from the baseline. We threw up lob after lob after lob. He's long and I'm long and we're fast. So it's like, like you better use a really sharp angle on your overhead or we're gonna get the ball back. And that's exactly what Eric tried to do. The last point, match point, he has a sitter put away. And I think he comes off it a little because he thinks he's going to hit Jana in the head. Because they bump into each other. And he tries to hit the sharpest angle to the ad side. So ad to ad, left side to left side, into the corner of the court. And he hits the net. And we win. And I swear, Eric and I won so many points literally staying back and defending to the point where I was like, hey, on big points, like let's just stay back. And we did that in the third game. I'm sorry. And we did that in the bronze medal match, which we'll get to in a second. So then we go into the semifinals and we thought we were going to be, this is my biggest gripe about nationals was there was like no communication about when you were going to go on court.
I agree.
And there was no one we could ask. And so we thought we were going to be third up on center, which would be like a 2-hour wait. And then they shut center court down and they put all matches on like court 7, 8, and 9. And then it was like, we got an instant text notification, you're out. And we'd been sitting for an hour cold trying to delay our warm-up.
3 hours.
It was 3 hours?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was
so
weird.
we do 2-minute warm-up. And we get thrown into the semifinal match and we get
on court 8, like while they are setting up for the celebrity thing that started at 5:30, your match was over at like 3:15. So
it was so frustrating.
It was so weird.
I don't get angry that much. And I was so angry.
Yeah, what do you think that was? Just like felt unfair and uncommunicated.
I was mad at ourselves that we couldn't figure that out. And we were sitting around for 3 hours and we didn't know center court was going to be shut down. I was mad that there was never a point of contact for the tournament that we could ask questions to, or we figured it out too late. I had texted the text service where they send you the court assignments.
Megan and Ryler were in that celebrity thing, so it's not like they could ever have like done it at the same time. Like they had to be done with the matches.
I don't know.
Before it started.
I don't know. Super frustrating. So we have a 2-minute warm up, go out and get absolutely slaughtered, like absolutely murdered by the 1 seeds who ended up winning, Bobby O'Shea and Will Howells, who just played.
Actually, I said
like
that
themselves.
earlier. I threw you off. Technically, Megan and Jack were the 1 seed, so they were the 2 seed, but they were the highest seed left.
Yeah.
And definitely
it was
gold medalist.
It was painful. I could not have played worse, but
there has to be a silver lining too. Like, hey, if you're gonna play your worst, it's against the match that isn't necessarily expected to, but no one likes to feel like they beat themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't mind being beaten. I hate losing, and there's like a difference.
Yeah,
like you can beat me, like, and that happens.
Yeah, you just want to make them work for it.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, so we'll save the bronze medal recap for talking about Sunday. So let's go to women's. We play women's, me and Megan, the very next day. We have a bye. We're the 1 seeds. And then we go in and we keep the theme of the tournament running, which is 3-game death battles.
Yeah, I ran the numbers. I did, because after you said that, I was like, oh, what? I wonder if she's like, sometimes you remember wrong. Like you'll be like, I played so bad. And then you'll watch the tape and be like, oh, I actually wasn't so bad. So I did look at all of your matches this year on Duper, and 8 and 10 on 3-game matches. You have 18 matches that went 3 games, and you had only won 8 out of 10, 8 and 10. So 8 out of 18 of them. At nationals, 5-0.
5-0. Yeah.
Won them all.
Yeah. And I'm excited to share with everyone listening what that mental shift was that I think has turned my 3-game record around. And I felt like 2023 was the year of like almost. And I'd lose to like Lucy and Callie, 11-9 in the third. I'd lose to all these teams like in the third. And then January comes around of 2024. And Jaume and I beat Callie and Jay in 3. And I felt like the winning in 3 was finally on my side.
And then the very next day you played Callie and Lucy and lost in 3.
Oh, was that the same tournament?
With Christine Maddox. Same tournament. Same metro complex in Scottsdale.
But there's definitely something about ending this year with having a way higher ratio of winning 3-game matches. And I think a lot of that is just being present and like not knowing the score, to be totally honest. Like if it's 9-all, you have to ask yourself, like, what do you have to lose? It's basically 0-0. If you're up 9-7, you have a 2-point cushion. If you're down 9-7, well, the pressure's on them. Like you see how you can kind of mentally reframe each of these situations to be a little more like positive.
Exactly. One of the most memorable things our golf psychologist ever told me in college was there are no problems, only opportunities. So you're in the woods, it's an opportunity to hit a punch shot.
Yeah.
You hit it in a hazard, it's an opportunity to get up and down for par or bogey in some cases. You just turn everything into an opportunity and suddenly the world is your oyster. Oh, I'm stuck in traffic and I'm going to be late. Well, this is an opportunity to try and affect my mindset into resigning myself to the fact that I can't control traffic, and I will eventually get there and deal with it then. And actually that was his example. He went to UCLA and he was like, dealing with traffic. He really had to find the right mindset to deal with traffic. Otherwise it would eat you up.
I think
mentally.
all this stuff is literally mindset. And you know, Christine Maddox, who we played in the in our first round because we had a bye, so technically the second round, is a huge fan of Be a Goldfish.
Yeah,
and she's an energy worker and has just amazing energy about her, which I think makes it so hard playing her. And Nicole Eugenio, who played amazing. And Megan and I win 12-10 in the third against them. What's interesting about that match is we were never down. Like we lost the first, we won the second, we were up the entire time in the third, but we allowed them to come back to 10-10, and then we closed it out. But they played great. All right, you guys, Gamma is having a 40% off Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale.
Wow.
And that really cool librarian ball that has sold out 3 times this year is finally back in stock. If you haven't tried it, go play at your neighbor's house till like 2 a.m. if they have a court.
Yeah, totally.
You won't piss anyone off.
Yeah, it's very popular by the HOAs of America.
A pro was asking me the other day, like, okay, well, what ball do you play? And I'm like, well, I have chucks. I play chuck. And they're like, okay, but like, what ball do you really, really play? And I was like, chuck? Like, I think they expected me to answer different. I'm like, no, like that's the ball I like to play.
Well, it is interesting now that there are so many different balls out there that there's no one ball you should practice. You should practice adapting to different balls so that you don't get so used to whatever that you go to a tournament and you're like, oh, they're playing a different ball. It's like a totally different game.
You know what's so weird? When I played tennis, I was so ignorant with the different balls. Like they all felt the same to me. And
funny.
I was the only person on my team or in practice who felt that way. And then in pickleball, here I am, and I'm like a ball snob.
Yeah, you totally are.
I can like close my eyes and hit a ball and tell you what the ball is.
Oh my God, we should do that.
Okay, let's do it. It's coming. What if we do it and I'm like, what's this? I hate this. And I look down, it's like the chuck. I'm like, delete.
But in all seriousness, everyone says that I've played with the chuck that it's fast. It's a fastball.
Yeah. No, it is. It's not slow. It's not like a Franklin. But I don't think it's like fast like a hard Dura at 50 degrees.
Yeah.
Which is good because I don't think that's going to last.
Yeah, it does not crack very quickly. So check it out. Do you want to use code JillyB at 25% or just stick to your Black Friday 40? It's up to you.
Well, try Black Friday 40, but throw in my code on top of it and see if you get 25 more off. JillyB 25. So we play Emily Cedarquist and Jana Newell. We had lost to them in July when I sprained my ankle on ESPN, which was really fun and could literally barely move. And they hit every ball in the middle and no one was there. And that was when Megan and I were like switching left and right and left and right. So we lose to them in Newport and then we play them in the finals of Dallas and we beat them in Dallas. And now we're playing them in the semifinals of Nationals. And it was, again, the theme of 3 games and so drama filled. So Kristen, what was the drama in this?
Well, it was funny because if you had asked me this the day after Nationals, I wouldn't have said anything other than, it was a death battle.
Yeah.
And then apparently there was some commentating on the live stream from Chad Edwards saying unsportsmanlike conduct from Megan. And I was like, what? And so I rewatched what they were talking about. And it was a ruling where Emily hit a ball. It looked like it was going wide. Megan yelled no. It landed, and she put her palm out and turned to you, and you were like, no, it was out. And they were like, nope. If one person calls it out and one person calls it in, it's in, and you can't challenge your own call now. But the reality is partners are allowed to communicate. Call. The no in the air is considered partner communication. So technically she hasn't called anything. And every match I've ever played, what does the ref say at the beginning of the match? Please call your calls loud and clear. Hand gestures do not count. And so I've always been under the impression that hand gestures are not in the rule book. So I looked at the rule book. Do you know what the rule book says?
No, what does it say?
It says you can use the word no, you can use the word out, you can use the word, there's like 3 other and or hand gestures. And I'm like, okay, let's see these hand gestures defined.
And they don't define the hand gestures.
There's no definition of the hand gestures. The only mention of hand gestures is in a line judges section where they say that a line judge should, I think, basically do 2 arms up or 2 arms down for in. So my point being, look, I get that this is a semantics thing, but they were turning it into a semantics thing. So to me, the real answer is the rules need to be more clearly defined. Look, I come from golf. The rules are very verbose and very plentiful. But
also back up a second. The ball was out. So I think you needed to lead with that. So
after the ref says, if one person calls it in and one person calls it out, it's in. Megan says, well, I never said in.
Yeah, she did say out. And then she put her hand
She said
out.
No, and then she said nothing, right? Like all the time, you might be returning a ball and your partner calls it out. Do you have to every single time both partners echo? I have not seen anyone hold to that. So the only question here is a flat palm an official call?
Yeah, that's the question.
It's really the only question. At the end of the day, we left it in the hands of the refs.
Yeah.
And they did go to a challenge and they did rule the ball was out. So the right outcome ultimately came down to what the ball did. And to me, I applaud Megan's sportsmanship for even considering
that it was in.
Yeah.
Why do the right
it was
thing.
out. B, she'd said no and she turned around and was like, ooh, that was kind of close. Jill, what did you think? Like,
well, also Megan had just played against Emily in the finals or in the ultimate point of a dream breaker at MLP like 3 weeks before that and didn't call a ball out and lost the dream breaker for her team and the ball Emily hit was out. So I do applaud Megan for her sportsmanship, like always wanting to call something in or think something's in. But in this case, the ball was out.
Right. And I think the other apropos thing, I think this was different than what you're talking about, was that Emily was playing with Rafa Hewitt when she was on the Bears very early in the season at DC. And she called a ball out that he overruled. And they were like, well, can we challenge it? And it was like, no, because your partner called it in, it's in. And so I think that based on the way that the rules are, what is the incentive here? What is this saying?
Yeah.
It's saying don't ever call a ball in unless you're absolutely sure. And it should be the other way around, right? Like we should all just want the right outcome, the right call. And if you tell a person that if one person says in and one person says out, that it's automatically in, well, of course that's going to disincentivize
people to have a conversation about it, partners to be like, hey, did you see that?
So I guess what she should have done is just say like, hey, I don't know if you guys want to challenge.
Well,
which you do see.
Well,
that's what you should always do. Don't even risk it. Like, don't make anyone think.
There's two things that stick out to me, like wanting to win a point on semantics. The ball was out. You hit the ball out.
Right.
I, Jill, called the ball out.
Who, by the way, has the better view.
Yeah,
right?
I have the better view.
Because when you can see from the middle of the court to the right sideline, you can see under the ball.
And
better.
now you're trying to like argue semantically you deserve the point.
Because
I think it's so
your
weird.
Partner called the wrong call.
Like at the end of the day, the ball was out. It's like, what are we arguing about? And then the other thing that I thought was so weird about it all was there was a live stream court cam that wasn't on QVC. It was like
all the courts had cameras at nationals. So if you want to go back and watch the 3-5, semifinals, you can find it.
So yeah, all the courts have a camera. So if you go back to that stream, which doesn't have commentating,
just ambient.
Yeah, it's just running, right? It's just this running camera. If you go back, you can actually hear the commentator, Chad Edwards, leave the booth. He doesn't know this is on film. And he doesn't know that the camera even has audio. Leave the booth and yell, Yana, Yana, Megan put her hand down. Megan called it in. So now you have this commentator who's really supposed to be a neutral figure, as unbiased as possible, advising one team and inserting himself,
and then calling the other player unsportsmanlike.
To change the complexion, to change the outcome of what is transpiring, and then calls the other person unsportsmanlike. It just felt very biased, intentional almost.
Yeah.
Hey, Yana, Megan called it in. She called it in. She called it in.
Definitely strange and bordering on unprofessional. But hey.
So those were the two things that stood out to me about that. And that happened, I was at like 8-5 in the third. We end up winning the third like 11-7? Something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
And then we go to
the final thing I was just gonna say is, I think the rules are the rules around the game, but then there's a third factor here, which is the challenge system, which is an entirely different set of rules. And then it's like, are we going off of the APP rules? Are we going off of USAP? Did they have a separate challenge system?
The whole time I was like, is this an APP? Is this like, what is this?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, every time you play, you have to like check the hard card, as we used to say in golf, which is like under the NCAA, there was a hard card set of rules. So there's like local rules within the rules. But
also fun.
maybe this will be an inspiration for USAP to clarify the rules on hand gestures. So yeah, I hope this inspires USAP to clarify the rules. But also worth mentioning that at one point you got a ball called out that I was sitting on the baseline, like I was where a line judge would be. So I had a pretty good view.
Wait, what does got a ball that was called out mean?
Eric hit a ball and they called it out. I believe this was in the bronze match. And you challenged it and they said, sorry, due to technical difficulties, we can't overrule it.
Due to technical difficulties, the call stands. We'll now go to side out at 4-2-1.
So due to technical difficulties, they couldn't overrule it. So it's like crazy stuff does happen and they're improving the challenge system the best they can. And I just want that momentum to keep going, just like I want the momentum on paddle testing to keep going more and more accurate. And
I just
we're
think
just
it's so
in real
unfair.
time.
It's so unfair to put these players in these super compromised positions, calling our own shot, trying to like actually play in like the highest pressure situation ever. And like you're running a million miles an hour and the ball doesn't compress. Is it in? Is it out? Like
we're doing the best we can, but eyewitnesses suck.
Like keep in mind that ball I called out and validated for Megan, it was like barely out, Kristen. Like it was out, but I could have so easily been totally wrong. And then I would have been like the major villain of it all, right? Like
so funny.
Like Megan wanted to call it in. Jill was like, no, it's out. Like imagine the story if it was 4 millimeters over because it was almost in.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is.
I called a ball. Well, we're going to talk about Championship Sunday right now. So we go to Championship Sunday and I say, Kristen, let's text both my partners and tell them I got really, really sick and I was sick all night and there's no way I can play.
And
I Kristen says,
that's a big fat no. We're not doing that. If you want to mess with your partners, come up with something better. But on the heels of your run-in with that Jasmine girl who didn't show up for her match for not feeling well, which by the way, she did eventually play the back draw and lose the first round in the back draw.
She wasn't feeling well.
So she did show up. It was very strange, very strange. Like if you're not feeling well, don't come. Don't come late.
Well, I genuinely hope nothing bad happens to her.
I do too. But point being, I talked you off that ledge.
So I wasn't able to do the joke.
You need to put
I would have thought was funny.
More of that creative prank energy onto me.
Getting you back for the rainstorm shoot. All right. So we go into Championship Sunday and I actually get to sleep. They are playing all the bronze matches first and then the golds. So I go on third and then I have a 1 match break and then the gold. So we go and we play Susanna Barr and Brandon Lane. And it is with the theme of the tournament, you guys. You guessed it.
It went to 3
games. It went to 3 games. Really interesting match. Super, super interesting. And I really wanted to win in mixed. I haven't told you this because I didn't want to be angry in women's.
I'm glad you didn't tell me that.
And so we do the craziest thing. We win the first game.
Wow.
Wild.
What a concept.
We win the first game.
And this is when it's my fault because I had the audacity to think inside of my head silently.
This is your fault.
Oh my God. Are they actually going to win in 2 for
your
once?
Fault. So you did this.
I did it.
Okay,
I jinxed
you did
it inside my head.
And then
it's a powerful brain.
And then in the second, Susanna and Brandon make really good adjustments. And now it becomes this total game of who can beat.
Yeah, what did they adjust? I don't even remember it.
To the adjustments. Who can best adjust to your opponent's adjustments? And
wasn't that an Emily Blunt movie? The Adjustments?
That's really funny.
The Adjustment Bureau?
So we drop the second game and I look at Eric and say, if we don't pull the trigger first and play more aggressive, dink more aggressive, everything more aggressive, we are 100% losing this match.
Yeah, you were Eric's mommy in this match.
For sure. And he gave me some great advice. He said I needed to dink more to Brandon and that would get Eric more involved. And I needed to be more aggressive. So it wasn't just him. And this was good advice, perfect partner communication. I told him what I wanted him to do differently, and he told me what he wanted me to do differently. And then we both went out and executed. At the end of the day, these third games are who's making adjustments best to the other adjustments.
Absolutely.
And so my overall thoughts was, I felt like 2023 was the year on tour, losing a lot in 3. And then ever since then, I felt more comfortable in these 3 game situations. And I'm going to attribute that to being present I felt like this tournament, I was the most present I'd ever been. I didn't know we were down 7 match points. I didn't even know we had won a couple matches or were up a match point. Like, it was just over and then it was over. And I was like, oh, it's over. And I think that
that's healthy.
And I think in the back of your brain, like you have an understanding this is an important point, but you're also just so present.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can explain what I felt.
You looked serene.
But yeah, in the car ride home, I said like the craziest thing ever to Kristen. I said, I'm obviously thrilled that I won, but I think I'd be happy either way, because at the end of the day, all you can do is the best you can do. Winning and losing continues just to be like a byproduct of all the other stuff, the mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, like, I almost lost both events in the first round. In the first round.
Yeah. Or your first round.
Yeah.
I know. You got to fight for every point. Always expect the ball to come back.
So you leave with 2 medals, and Nationals pays out. It was a $12,000 payday for a gold and a bronze.
I like accidentally was scrolling, looking for something on their website, and I found the payouts, and I was like, is this right? And I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to like psych you out.
But then you did.
But then it came up organically, and I was like, do you want to know? You might be winning $12,000.
Like, shit, that's a lot of money. Like, it's a pickleball tournament, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's still a lot to me, at least.
I know.
I think it's a lot to anyone.
I know. And Will Howells went home with 18. That's more money than he got paid the entire year playing with Annalie Waters on the MLP team. How do you think he feels about that?
Oh my gosh.
It's great publicity. It's just great publicity.
That's so funny. MLP, speaking of, it's over. And what will it look like next year? Am I going to play? Is anyone from the Miami or the Chicago team going to play? Those teams are all non-contracted players.
Not to mention SoCal.
Yeah.
So the top 3 teams all have no signed players.
Well,
one. Because Irina's on an original contract.
Yeah, so the top 3 teams in Challenger
12
are
players.
11 out of 12 unsigned. So 11 of the 12 best players in Challenger, best finishers, are unsigned. And 2 of the 4 premier second place players, so that's Mari Humberg and Will Howells,
right,
are unsigned. Not
to mention Jaume, who ended up not playing the very finals, but his team has 2 unsigned players as well.
Who?
Susanna and Emily.
Ah, that's right. That's right. So, yeah, they have a new CEO of MLP, or head of MLP, Samin. And Samin is a partial owner, or one of the owners in the Brooklyn Aces team. Comes from an NBA background. So what I've been hearing is it'll be short-term contracts. So if someone wants Megan Fudge to play, here's a 30-day contract, go prove yourself. Or here's a 2-month contract. And then as you continue to perform, maybe you get a little bit better of a contract. So that's how like NBA does it, apparently.
I guess. I assume that because he comes from an NBA background, he's plug and playing some of it. All I know is when I watched the documentary on Jeremy Lin, one of your team owners, he at one point was not only sleeping on a teammate's couch, but he was sleeping on like a teammate's love seat where his neck was hanging off one end and his feet were hanging off the other end. And he's like 7'1" or whatever. No, he's 6 something. But if there's a person who ends up being as big as Jeremy Lin on an NBA team who's required to sleep on someone's couch, that gives you a sense of probably how like precarious his contract situation was.
Super interesting. I want to read something Megan Fudge wrote in her blog. Y'all can go and subscribe to her blog. It's really good. She's trying to blog daily about trials and tribulations, pros and cons of being a pro, pun intended. So she says, MLP continues to deliver a product that's exciting and fan-friendly. The Premier League final last night was a nail-biter filled with energy and drama. But honestly, I wish MLP gave all teams and matches that same level of attention and enthusiasm. Sometimes it feels like the Challenger League is treated as the ugly stepchild, and that disparity takes away from the experience for both players and fans. I totally agree with Megan on this. Challenger's always been this deprecated stepchild, and I've always thought it was so weird to have 2 leagues when there's so few good players in the sport, especially on the women's side, and it kind of diminishes and dilutes your own product. Like,
yeah, you know what I was thinking?
English Premier League has how many teams? So why was it so egregious just to have, you know, 1 league? It's all Premier, and then minor league can maybe be the feeder system. Like, there's a lot you could do other than diluting your own product.
And you know what's proof positive of this? Who was the worst team in Premier?
Penn Johns.
Utah.
And then Ben Johns' team.
Utah, playing in Utah, had so much crowd energy, so much fan favoritism, whatever, that they found their way to actually doing kind of okay that week. And it proves that, like, if you just put the worst teams against all the other teams, the winners will emerge, the players will emerge. And if you call it challenger, you end up with attitudes like our friend Emily in the first year was like, we're the real pros.
Yeah.
Like, what is this product?
Yeah. Our friend Emily, who was a fan watching.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is fair. It's like, it's not very great optics.
And it's just not, it's just not true. You can't watch Eric Onson's playing and Bobby Oshiro and be like, challenger. And Jaume, like, and then you can't watch, conversely, people on premier teams and be like, oof, God, she doesn't belong there. Or he doesn't belong there, right? Like,
yeah, and everyone has good days and bad days and have different partners who bring out the best and worst in them and opponents alike. So the beauty of MLP is this mixing of players you don't normally see on a court together.
Yeah.
So I think they have an opportunity
and
to do
getting
something.
to see like new upcoming players get a chance to prove themselves, like Noe Cliff.
Yeah, totally. And people like Michael Lloyd, who may just be MLP specialists, may just be like MLP brings out the best of their skills.
So who knows what's in store for MLP? I think Megan makes it clear in her blog. She has no idea if she's playing next year. I obviously have no idea if I'm playing next year.
Oh boy. Our pod notes just got an amendment.
I've heard from people they want more cat in the pod. So if this isn't enough cat, I don't know what is. Toby? Make yourself at home, Bomber.
This podcast is brought to you by Bomber.
So another reason I think it's hard to convince players like myself, Bobby, Emily, Susanna, and all the unsigned players to play is look at these financial opportunities that exist for us, not just on the APP Tour, who's supposedly matching the same prize money as they did in 2024 for 2025, which is great. There's PWR, Pickleball World Rankings, and the PWR Tour. And we are lucky to have Pranav Kohli, the CEO, the international king of pickleball, on this podcast to talk about his vision. And he is creating $15 million of opportunities where, if Megan and I win one of these international tournaments, we're walking away with $50,000 each. Think about that. That's crazy. And so I think the PPA, from what I have heard, is doing everything in their power to try and do some type of joint venture, some type of partnership with Pran. And we talk a little bit about this on this podcast. And we talk a little bit about this in the interview, Kristen. But we filmed this interview a while ago.
Yeah.
And the
Was
news...
it 6 weeks ago?
Yep. And the news that we have right now is that they are meeting, PWR and UPA, on Thanksgiving Day to talk about partnering. And if I'm Pran and I've got a lot of momentum, a lot of financial backing, I wouldn't do it. And here's why. Would not partner with the UPA under any circumstances. Because if you're in year 1 and 2 of what you think is going to be and what you believe is going to be a 50-year-old business, a 100-year-long business, 1 to 2 years is going to go by quickly. Ben Johns only signed a 2-year contract to the PPA. That's up in 1 year. There's a bunch of players who only signed 2-year contracts. That's in 12 months, those players are coming up. And in 2 years, all the players are coming up. So if you just create an amazing experience right now for the next year to 2 years, prove your concept, shore up your business model, shore up your financial backing, and stay true to your vision, you don't need to give up equity. You can go pay Ben Johns $5 million to come if he's even the best player in a year or 2 years. And if you think about a company that has done this, right, who has just stayed true to their vision, built a financially sustainable and scalable business, it's the APP.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So that's your take, is you don't see them collaborating, or shouldn't.
It's hard because I always say this about Tom Dundon. What's his is his and what's yours is his.
For sure.
And don't forget, the MLP deal wasn't a joint venture. It wasn't a partnership. There was this forced merger.
It felt very one-sided.
And MLP wasn't this single, is not a single entity league anymore. It's part of this UPA umbrella parent. So I don't even think it's in the UPA's DNA to be able to do some type of like true partnership.
No, it's just the classic scorpion and the toad or whatever.
Yeah, scorpion and frog.
Where, tiger don't change its stripes. Scorpions don't change their stinger.
Yeah.
They just do what they do. That's all he knows.
I'll never forget when I gave that analogy to describe the PPA, the scorpion and the frog. A team owner said to me, "That's so funny. I have used that exact same analogy before when describing them."
Yeah, it's just facts.
Yeah.
It's just true.
On the topic of UPA, Kristen, before we play the Pran interview, let's do a little paddle talk. So we've had Jason Aspis on our podcast before to talk about UPA certification, and he's obviously been on multiple other platforms. And we know that price tag is somewhere in the $70,000 range to be a UPA certified paddle. They just built a robot finally for PB Core and for all the testing that they're going to be doing. And that's expensive stuff, right? So they need to charge. And I know there are a lot of big companies that are not going to do it. They're not going to pay the certification.
I think that's the debate. Just because it costs them money doesn't necessarily mean that the paddle manufacturers should pay, or to what rate. Like when you buy a house, you get on a 30-year mortgage. Like why are they trying to pay off this robot in year one? Like how quickly are they trying to offset the cost of proper testing when it's in the best interest of their product to have better and more accurate testing for the fairness and for the sake of all their sponsors, so they don't have favoritism. Like there are lots of reasons why the UPA has a vested interest in spending a lot of money on testing.
Yeah.
Well, what about drug testing? What are you going to do? Charge Adderall for the drug test?
Manufacturers that I think are on the list would be Carbon, Yola, Franklin. And then I thought Selkirk, and I keep hearing Selkirk hasn't paid.
Well, they did produce some letters, so there is some definite evidence out there that might point to the contrary. I mean, I have a big concern. Who is going to be in the DJ booth if there's no DJ Selkirk? It's going to look and sound a lot different next year without Selkirk. So yeah, I was talking to one of the paddle manufacturers, and the rough list I had was ProXR and Paddletech, which are one company, Proton, Gearbox, and then, of course, what you said, Yola, Franklin, Carbon. And then, of course, Versix. Don't forget, if you play any other manufacturer that we don't allow, you're getting a Versix.
Versix is owned by the UPA, in case anyone's wondering. That's why when you go to Pickleball Central, it's like, Versix is the best paddle ever. Buy it, buy it, buy it. So I have on good authority the Yolas, the mod will be banned, Q1 for USA Pickleball, and the S3 or 3S will not be approved by USAP. So right now it's UPA certified, but it's not USAP certified. It's kind of ironic. And then the hotter paddle, the mod, you can technically play on the PPA, but
on the APP.
I'm sorry, you can play on the APP, but they really don't want you to on the PPA. So it's actually like a little ironic.
Yeah, technically the mod is not outlawed on the PPA. It's frowned upon, and the players feel like if they just play a 3S, it's close enough.
So if you play the APP next year and you play Yola, what are you playing? The Gen 2s?
I'm sure they've got a 4S coming.
Oh, interesting. It's going to have to get USAP
The
approved.
Radial, it's coming back.
I think it's called the Radia. That paddle cracks me up every time I see it in the wild.
What else are we going to see?
I mean, could paddles? I feel like we need a reality TV show just in the paddle industry. Like, forget the players, guys. Like, let's just look at
who would be
PPA execs and the paddle companies.
Who would be the Gordon Ramsay of paddles?
I think you'd be hard pressed to find.
I want it hotter. It's not hot enough.
Well, the list that we got's 2 weeks old, and it's possible they could have applied between now and then, but
I don't think it's ever too late. Like any new company can just decide.
No, I'm sorry, sir. We do not want your $75,000. Take your business elsewhere.
In this case, they might. Who knows? Might be a two-way street.
Oh, too funny. As far as paddle talk goes, USAP is increasing their certification rates too. My understanding is it's going to be $9,000, and that's with expediting, but you have to do expediting because of the backlog. So if you have to do that for every paddle.
Well, obviously you don't have to, but you're saying like otherwise it'll be like a 6-month wait period.
Yes. There's a big wait if you don't do the expedition fee.
Oh, that's what expedition means.
No, it's a Ford.
And they apparently unveiled some new testing during nationals. Did you hear of any paddles?
No, I know
getting failed.
And then I heard in 2026 you'll have to retest all of your old paddles for USAP.
Oh, fact check. I mentioned this, I believe, in the visuals on the last pod, but Jill said she finished number 3. She actually did not. She finished number 2 at the end of the APP season.
Thank you.
Double mazel tov.
Thank you.
Second only to your partner, Megan Fudge.
Let's go. Thank you. Well, Kristen, I'm so excited for our listeners to learn a little bit more about the international king himself, Pranav Kohli.
And the timing is great because we're about to find out what team you're on pretty soon, right?
Yep. The draft is early December.
That's what we were hearing.
The India League. So for those of you listening at home that don't know, there's this really cool MLP style India League run by PWR with famous team owners and a draft. And yeah, Chris and I are heading out to India in January.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear from Pran. All right, you guys, we are so excited to have Pranav Kohli on the pod. I'm calling this the Pran pod, and I have been trying to get Pran on the pod for 2 months, and he finally said yes today on my birthday. There is no better birthday gift. Pran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Pran, you are CEO of PWR, an organization that has been making humongous waves in the international global pickleball space. We are feeling those ripples here in the US. Tell us, who are you and what is PWR?
Yeah, I mean, so I have a family business, I'm a 4th generation entrepreneur. I have a family business which is into sports goods, and sports has always been part of our blood, and it's been part of our DNA. And pickleball, like everybody, took us like a storm in India as well, and I fell in love with the sport back in 2022. Interestingly though, the sport was introduced to me by my wife. A lot of people know this now because I've said it multiple times. I have to give credit every time I speak to my wife for introducing the sport to me back in 2019 actually. Family office is sports courts. We are primarily into table tennis. We got into pickleball in 2022. Almost all the major activations that you saw last year were actually on our courts. We built out these rollout courts under a brand called Pickleball United. So when McEnroe and Chang and Agassi and Roddick played, we built those courts out. When it was, APP Miami this year, or whether it was APP in New York at the Billie Jean King Center, we built those courts out. Whether it was, the City Pickle courts last year, that was us. So, last year was a phenomenal year for us to introduce ourselves. And, we all watched how MLP, PPA, APP all blew up last year. And, we thought about us, what about international, and a lot of these tours had plans for international, but I realized that, right now, pickleball is at a very nascent stage, even in the US. So for any of these guys to have a dedicated effort at an international level will be a little bit challenging, which is where we took it upon ourselves to kind of create the ecosystem internationally. And, we have that bandwidth, being a sports company for a long time now, dealing with MGBs and at a global level. So we decided, we thought to ourselves, what would it take to create the Grand Slams of pickleball? Let's just say if we want to do that. And that's how Pickleball World Series was born. But, we realized that just doing the Grand Slams or the big events or the aspirational events is not enough. You need the feeder systems. You need to have the pathways created. So we preempted whatever a governing body would do and invested into that, whether it's the ranking system and whether it is, the World Series or whether it is basically the pathways for players. We believe that we wanted to give opportunity to players from across the world. And at the same time, we wanted to preempt some of the investments on behalf of the governing bodies so that when they get into existence, so we're helping a lot of governing bodies to, create the rankings, working with Duper to create their first ratings, and then taking them from a governance structure all the way to their first event. our objective is to grow the sport across the globe, and that's what we've been working very hard to do.
That is super interesting, Pran. Thank you for that. We saw Tom Dundon, owner of the PPA Tour and the roll-up entity Pickleball.com, come in a couple of years ago with this vision, right, to roll up the entire domestic pickleball market, to own all facets of it, a really 360-degree view where he owns Pickleball Central, so the retail component. Then he wanted to own the Pro Tour, right? The PPA, then the software, the tournament platform, pickleball.com, formerly known as, pickleball brackets or pickleballtournaments.com. So really taking this 360-degree view of owning an entire industry. That was his vision. And we're seeing that play out now with kind of the absorption of MLP into that pickleball.com umbrella. So talk to me, what is the vision for PWR? Do you have a similar vision to own it all internationally? Because from what I've seen on the outside, you're very collaborative actually with partners. You're bringing people in. You want to work with who wants to work with you to promote the sport. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it just seems to be a really collaborative approach that you're taking with all of the partners you're working with.
Yeah. So ownership is and it's very interesting that you posed it like that, Joe, because ownership is a definitive term, and ownership by an individual or a company dies with the individual or the company, right? So when a company dies, ownership dies, right? Or it's sold off, or it's converted. I believe growth is the right word. When we talk about ownership, we talk about a very divisive and inclusive kind of. And I'm not saying PPA by any means is that kind of an organization. I'm saying ownership as a word is divisive and non-inclusive. I believe when we look at it in a very different way, where we say, okay, we want to grow the pie of pickleball, and then whoever fits into that ecosystem, we're happy to work with them. And then that's, I think, more of a legacy business, right? Being a fourth generation entrepreneur, I want to build something that lasts longer than me. I want to see pickleball in the Olympics. I know that if we get those, with good governance and the right kind of, choices, we get the sport into the Olympics, the business side of it will take care of itself. So we want to work with, we're very inclusive in our partnerships. We're very inclusive with the way we do work, because we look at growth as opposed to ownership. Now, does that mean that we're collaborative with everybody? We want to be. But then at some points, we want to make sure that everything is happening for the growth of pickleball. And I think that's how I would define it, different from an ownership perspective. So while we want to have, I'll give you an example from a TMS perspective, right? TMS for us is not a priority, but it's become essential because I speak to people in Japan, I speak to people in China, I speak to people all across Southeast Asia.
For everyone listening, that's tournament management software, TMS,
that's
EMS,
correct.
Event management software.
That's correct. So I speak to all of the governing bodies, and I speak to tournament operators, and their challenge is, they need something which is in a local language. They need something which is, adaptive to their local conditions. And I think we are looking at what can we do. It's not an opportunity for us to expand in that sense, but if we can come in and provide a solution from that perspective. So I think if the sport has to grow, we need to keep our ears open for these conversations. We need to have these conversations and address them. Now, obviously, everything has to have a bottom line. So if there is something that we invest in, we also want to eventually monetize it. But then it comes from having a problem and then solving it. And it's in its no sense it is completely exclusive, or it's in a way where we say, okay, if you want a PWR event, you have to use our TMS EMS. No, we don't work in that kind of environment, and we want to have growth. So anything that translates or transcends any kind of divisive opportunities, we make it into in a growth kind of a format. That's how we look at it.
So it sounds like for you, success, if you will, is measured in the growth of the game and the growth of more play and more tournament play. Talk to us a little bit about your partners, though, and how you have come to arrive at these giant purses and these huge pro events. Obviously, it's altruistic to just grow the game, but where do you see your role in the grander pickleball ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we believe we have three stakeholders, right? players being the number one stakeholders, two being our sponsors, and third being our investors, right? So I think if we take care of these three kind of overall entities as stakeholders within what we're doing, then I think that's where we will be able to define success better. So starting off with the first and foremost is our investors. So we've got Times Group backing us, which is the largest media conglomerate in India. Mr. Vineet Jain, who's the owner and MD of Times Group, is actually a pickleball player himself. He loves to play pickleball. He's got a court in his backyard. And it's been phenomenal working with them, right? Because once again, they are, they have the same ethos, they have the same values, and they want the same for the sport. So that's where our investors come in. So as long as we have that match with them, then we can go ahead and take care of the other two entities. When I talk about our players, we've always put players first in terms of, how do we make it more inclusive for players? How do we make it how do we make this such, okay, we have to take care of certain white noise, but at the end of the day, how do we make it such that we can grow the number of people playing pickleball, make it aspirational? How do I create an event in India that, people playing in the US want to play it, people playing in Asia want to play it, people who are not playing it want to play it next year, right? And they want to get there. That's, and then how do I not just create that aspiration, but also then create a pathway for them, right, to get there, so that when somebody who's 5 years old can look at a 17-year-old kid playing in our events and say, hey, this is where I want to be in 12 years. And then I can provide, opportunities for them as an organization to get there, basically, over the next 12 years. So that's the player side of it. And then the sponsors come in, right? Because, that's where the monetization happens. And, we want to take care of our sponsors as well. So the only way we'll be able to do that is if our investors' ethos match what we want to say and do, and B, if we take care of the players, because eventually the more the players are happy with the product, the sponsors will be happier as well, because then, they can have activations with the players, and, it becomes a happy ecosystem, basically.
Pran, it's interesting hearing you talk, and talk is cheap, right? But I try and listen to the vocabulary. And the vocabulary you're using is ethos, supporting the players, building a pathway, building meaning and financial opportunity for players, building a legacy business, like all of your partners and collaboration and growth. You remind me a lot of Steve Kuhn. Are you the international Steve Kuhn? And is Steve Kuhn involved in any of this? And by the way, I mean that as a huge compliment. I have a lot of respect for Steve.
And I have a lot of respect for Steve as well. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Steve and I, we've met multiple times and have had multiple discussions. So, I mean, obviously, there are some places that we agree on, some places we disagree on. But, one thing is clear, that both of us want the growth of the sport. And I think, if the sport grows, anything that he does, obviously, as a vested party in pickleball, will grow, and anything we do grows. So, but to answer your question, no, Steve is not involved with us in any of our ventures, but Steve and I often are crossing paths at different various places, because he's more in Asia now, so that's where we're seen together a lot more, but we're not involved in any business activities together.
Okay, thank you. That's super helpful.
So funny you should mention that, Jill, because I was feeling the exact same thing about Steve Kuhn, and the phrase, when pickleball wins, we all win, is something that we used to say a lot when we were around Steve frequently. And I'm feeling those vibes from you. Talk to us, you are obviously preaching to the choir, and we are all pickleball zealots here, to use another Steve Kuhn term. But talk to us a little bit about your obstacles, because, we see in America this explosive growth aided by COVID, of course. But there's still the turf wars with tennis and people who think, oh, it's too loud for our HOA. So what are your obstacles internationally? Are you seeing people in, padel facilities embracing it? Or are you seeing more pushback from the other racket sports? It seems like in Asia, obviously, the table tennis translates really well to pickleball. Badminton has different, aspects of the sport that really tie into the fast pace, fast hands, and the overheads. Where do you see the aid and the pushback internationally? Is it court space? Is it anything else?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're at a very nascent stage in Asia. We're just at the beginning. With great population, also there is the opportunity, but also the underbelly which nobody sees, and that essentially is that if I talk about paddle availability or the racket availability right now, if I talk about the US brands, for example, obviously the US market has adopted and accepted the prices that are there, but we can't grow the sport with, I mean, if you talked about table tennis and badminton. Table tennis is the most played sport in China. Badminton is the most played sport in India. We're collectively a $3.5 billion population countries, basically. And if you want to tap that mass market in terms of the sport, the one thing that you need to understand is that a badminton racket in India is available at less than $1. A table tennis racket in India is available at less than $1. So at retail, right?
Sorry,
So
just to be clear, are you saying it's $1 for a
that's
racket?
correct. That's correct.
And I thought pickleball was basically free because I come from golf where you spend like $2,000 to $5,000 on your set of clubs, and it's like, oh, $60,
Correct.
$100, whatever.
So
$1.
we're not just competing with paddle, or paddle is an elite
Tennis.
sport in Asia, for Asia, or tennis for that matter. If you're competing with table tennis and badminton, you're competing with a very different it's a different pricing strategy altogether. So I mean, to come to your point, the first thing that we did was, because of our manufacturing background, our cheapest paddle in India is retailing at $10, right? Which is a wooden paddle, but then it's an accessible paddle. Our cheapest fiberglass paddle is $15.
Wow.
So we want to bring those prices down to about $5 for a wooden paddle, which is accessible. If we do that, that's the only way the sport gets to that 100 million kind of mark in Asia. And I think that's what brands from the US don't understand, that right now, the population that's playing pickleball in Asia is a very elitist population. And you can target that population, and that's fine. But then you're vying for a 500,000 to a million people kind of economy from a manufacturer point of view. So the growth that you expect in Asia is not going to come at a $100 paddle market. It's going to come at that $5 to $10 market, and that's, I think, the biggest obstacle for the growth of the sport in Asia. I mean, it's not true. Same is not true for Europe, but I can tell you the same is true for Africa and many countries in Latin America as well.
Yeah, that makes me think about a video actually we made a few months ago about how inclusive and just inviting the sport is compared to specifically golf and tennis, among other things. But talk to us. I think our listeners would be really curious about the culture of pickleball where you are. Is it similar in that people just show up to courts, play open play? Here's a paddle, borrow this, come with my friend. Tell us a little bit about the culture of pickleball.
Yeah, I think the culture is slightly different. We have more pay and play facilities because we're primarily in tier 1 facilities right now. We're still getting into institutions like colleges and schools and that kind of ecosystem. So you do come with a set group, you come with your friends, and you book a court and you play. One of the key things which is very exciting for me is that the sport is transcendent to gender in India, and India being a patriarchal society, I think that's something that is very, very exciting, because what you see in India is women participation, right? We have almost 40% participation when we run events, and which is phenomenal. You don't see that in any other sport. The thing I love about pickleball is that it's not intimidating, right? For men and women to be on the same court, you don't feel intimidated. Then the other thing, which is for me, I'm 168 kgs, which is like 370 pounds or something, right? For somebody like me to step on a court and pick up on a pickleball court is again not intimidating. For paddle, I feel I'm going to fall and hurt myself. For tennis, I'll never be able to run, because it's singles and it's difficult. Table tennis I can play, but table tennis again, there's that difference between men and women, and so I the sport of pickleball is so transcendent across body types and gender that that's what is exciting from my perspective to look at the sport, is that I can see a lot of women participation happening. I can see a lot of paraplegic participation happening. I can see a lot of different body types participating in the sport, and that's that's where the real beauty of this sport is. Now, obviously, we have to go beyond that and also look at the economic side of it and see how we can help on that front. But specifically, if you can afford it, from a playing perspective, pickleball is one of those sports which, in a patriarchal society, transcends gender.
That's huge. That's really, really cool to hear. Have you seen it immersed into middle schools or high schools?
So the beauty about India as a country is that we've got almost 30% of our population below the age of 18, right? So which means that there's a huge amount of, if you want to popularize a sport, there is a big TG which comes from that group, right? So we've seen a lot more adoption happening very quickly, relatively, in schools and colleges. And I think that's, one of the key things for my investor, Times Group, is they also own a university. So, they're looking at that as doing university games. They've already built 12 courts in their main campus. They're looking to build more in different places. So I think that adoption is happening. I think there's a lot of benefactors to the sport who are bringing this within their communities in terms of schools and colleges, and a lot of the younger generation is picking it up. So I think, yes, that is there. We're still, again, I repeat, we're still at a very nascent stage of the sport, but I do believe that, that is happening as we speak.
And how large are international numbers in the US, depending on who you ask? We have anywhere between 10, 15, 20 million players. I saw yesterday an article come out. Yesterday an article came out that said more pickleball players than tennis players in the US. So until I get some new SFIA data, I don't know who to trust. But my point is, and my question, Pran, is, do you have any numbers you could share with us in terms of number of players in India and then number of players either in Asia or just total internationally that don't include Canada and US? I'd be really curious.
I'm going to speak on the facts that I know as opposed to speculating on anything, right? I know that when we started and when we got into the sport back in 2022 May, there were 50 courts in India with about a community of 1,000 players playing pickleball. I know that for a fact that between 2022 and right now, we've built close to about 2,000 courts. Right, the community has grown to about 100,000 people playing across India.
In 2 years.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate. I don't want to give numbers which are, I don't want to speculate on what that is going to look like, because, as you know, we just discussed the challenges for that growth to happen. But I can tell you this, that it has grown phenomenally. I think it is from nobody knowing what pickleball is 2 years ago to now being a buzzword in India and in China. I think we're on the right track. We just need to take care of some hygiene factors.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the growth pattern that we've seen in the last couple of years.
I love that you're looking at this in such a holistic 360-degree view way. And I don't mean in the way of like, well, how do I own all of this? But how do I actually help from a software perspective, right? We talked about TMSs and organizations needing to run events in their language. And you're looking at it from a hardware perspective too, which is how do we get the costs of paddles down so that we can be competitive with ping pong, so we could be competitive with badminton. And you're looking at it from a perspective of how do I create these marquee tentpole Grand Slam events and a pathway system for players. So you are looking at this in an incredibly hardware, software, tour, play view, and I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I do truly believe that for the sport to be successful internationally, because look at the three continents, right? Asia, Latin America, and Africa. We need this, right? We need this we need somebody to think it along these lines. I'm not saying that we're going to be present everywhere with our presence, but we'll be happy to support whoever in our best, with our best resources, whoever wants to do it in different places, and within our limited resources right now, because there's so much to do in the sport. So I say limited in that sense, but within what we're doing, we're happy to support anybody who wants to grow the sport, any of these continents, basically.
So we've been really lucky to have some incredible guests on our podcast. Most recently, the CEO of USA Pickleball talked about the Olympics. That was the last time we talked about the Olympics. You mentioned the Olympics today. I feel like I never quite get a straight answer from anyone when I talk about the Olympics. So tell us the truth. Why are we not going to see pickleball in the next Olympics? And do you think we will see it soon?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm gonna divulge as much as I know, and I'm pretty embedded into the ecosystem to know quite a bit. Look, I know for a fact that a lot of tennis federations, national and international, are trying to steamroll the sport in different ways. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that it is the ITF or it is anybody else. I'm just saying there is a lot of tennis federations who want to do that, and on the other side, there are a few tennis federations who are saying that okay, fine, this is another sport that can coexist with tennis. I also understand that right now there is a power grab kind of a situation which is happening. Everybody, as you rightly said, who's been part of this ecosystem wants to be part of the governance, because governance is going to be a key critical part of this overall ecosystem. So, and including us, right? We want to be able to, and for us, it's more from a structure perspective, because one of the key things that we need to understand is that Olympic Charter, and also in terms of having compliances from a sports code perspective, from WADA, NADA, anti-doping, anti-drug policies, these are all things that we need to look at, right? And then a clearly elected board, one country, one vote eventually. And what I see right now, there isn't a single organization which has all the bandwidth within themselves. And I say this with all due respect. I'm not saying they're not trying. I'm just saying that they don't have it yet. And I think it will require a behemoth of an effort for them to build this out. Now, within that thought process, if there are personal interests which drive that, then we're going to take forever, right? And if there are people, sorry.
I was just going to ask, so you talked about everyone wants a piece of governance, wants to be a part of governance, and I totally get that. I see UPA, so that's MLP and PPA. They started their own governing body, the UPAA. You've got USA Pickleball that had supported the IFP, but you also have Seymour Rifkind at WPF, and they're all trying to figure out how to make that work. And you talked about you're involved in governance. So is there an international governing body that you support?
I mean, for me, international governing bodies right now are nomenclature, right? So GPF, WPF, IPF is nomenclature, right? So, for me, GPF, WPF and IFP or IPF is nomenclature, primarily because, you can call yourself World Pickleball Federation, you can call yourself Global Pickleball Federation, you can call yourself International Pickleball Federation. It doesn't really mean anything until there is a lot of work happening. We are supporting GPF at this point fully, and we recognize GPF as a governing body for two reasons.
And who is GPF? Is that
GPF is the governing body which USA Pickleball kind of curated with the help of all other international countries which initially left IPF. Some of them joined GPF, some of them did not join GPF. One of the key reasons why we're supporting GPF is that with USA Pickleball being the rule-making body, I think that's the first step that people look at. Today, if I go into Asia and I speak to Japan, the first question they ask me is that what are the rules? Who's making the rules, right? And that's the basic first and foremost question I got to answer with anybody that I meet with, right? That who is making the rules? And in this case, USA Pickleball is making the rules, right? At this point, at least. Eventually, that rulemaking needs to shift to a global federation, and there's a process and thought process to move it to GPF. And that's where that's where our belief is in that ethos is, or that their ethos is not ethos match, basically.
And for context for our listeners at home, this is really important because until a certain number of countries recognize one governing body, one international governing body, we have no chance of being in the Olympics.
Yeah. The problem happens is that because you have multiple international bodies claiming to be the governing bodies, within the countries also you have multiple governing bodies. So now you've got each of these governing bodies claiming they have as many countries to support that. My belief is that collectively, and I'm talking about UPA, PPA, MLP, ourselves, and DUPER, and anybody else, APP, involved in this ecosystem, if as private enterprises we do not come out and support before we expect anybody else to come out and support an individual governing body, if the private entities within the business who have so much vested into the sport don't come out and support one individual governing body, which is independently elected, how do we expect anybody else to come out and say, hey, why don't you support somebody? So within the people involved in making that consensus, if we can't have that consensus amongst ourselves as people vested into the sport, we cannot expect anybody else to come out and actually endorse anybody. And why would you ask anybody to endorse anything if amongst 7, 8, 10, 15, whether it is the paddle manufacturers, whether it's the tour operators, whether it is whoever has a vested interest in the sport, if within that community, if you cannot come out and say, hey, this is the body that we're going to recognize, and this is the body we believe is going to do the right work, and then however you want to support them, with the resources that we all collectively have, we should work towards that. And whatever our interests are as a private entity, we should put that forward towards that governing body, and use the resources, monetary and otherwise, to kind of answer those questions for ourselves. But we have to take that stance before we ask anybody else to take that stance.
No, and it begs the kind of other question. We've talked about your partners and your sponsors, but who will we see playing in these events? Are you trying hard to get the ability to see PPA players come over to your events, or are we just going to see the free agents, so to speak, the freedom players play? Or is there any chance we'll be seeing a UPAA collaboration here?
So, to answer your question, am I trying hard? I'm trying very hard to create a great product, right? That's what we're trying hard to do.
The world. So yeah, if you create the best thing, the players will definitely want to be there.
Correct. And build a year of events, build trust, build relationships. I think that's more important. With our key stakeholders, right? The players who come right now, we need to make sure they are treated well and they have a great experience. That's the first and foremost. Whoever comes, it doesn't really matter. What matters is, whoever comes goes back with a great experience. That's the first thing. The second thing is obviously, whoever gets involved with us from a monetary perspective, to give them great value, right? And then, then we'll figure out, we believe talent is available across the globe. I think it's growing. I think, you don't know what the talent is going to look like from 2 years from now, right? Across from Asia and, Latin America and, Europe and Africa and everywhere, and even US for that matter. There are a lot of first generation pickleball players that are now playing pickleball as their first sport. So would I like for PPA players to participate? Absolutely. Would I like APP players to participate? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we did not start this company off with the thought process that, we will partner with somebody to get the players. We started this company as we will build the best product, and then we'll figure it out from there.
I love it.
I think that is so smart. Sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
No, we're just in 100% agreement. I wonder sometimes, you see the difference between what pickleball looked like 3 years ago to today. And I can only imagine the next 3-5 years, like how much more athletic, faster, more dynamic can this sport look?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to watch
Absolutely.
the evolution.
Kristen, what are you drinking?
Oh, it's a Rainstorm. My favorite flavor, citrus zest.
Still the favorite. Classic.
God, I love grapefruit. But I'm really getting into the mango now. And they have so many great flavors that they have finally proven statistically that they are the superior taste. So find out for yourself. Head over to Rainstorm Taste Test. See if your taste buds agree.
Also, fun fact, we've been out of Rainstorm for the past 2 weeks, and it's been not good in our household.
I don't think you updated Whitney on our new address.
It hasn't been good.
Mom's house, Newport Beach, California.
We were at Nationals stopping at random liquor stores to get Rainstorm. Do they have it? Do they have it?
True.
And Megan Fudge drinks it too. And I was like, I got you a Rainstorm. Christine Maddox came up. She's like, do you have an extra one of those? I'm like, yes, here you go.
So excited.
I think everything you just said makes a lot of sense, Pran. Building the best product, earning the trust of the players. Again, I'm just listening to the vocabulary you're using, and I think you have created some intense FOMO with what it is you guys are doing. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
We're just excited to be alive during all of this.
I mean, it's a, I look at it from this perspective, right? It's a once in a generation opportunity for me to have an impact on a sport, right? How many times can every sport is so established. How many times can you say that, hey, I was part of building that, right? I was part of building something unique. I was part of building. So I think I just want that opportunity for myself to build something, to help build something, to contribute to that, whole product when it comes out eventually. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we want to play our part. That's all.
So Pran, when you got started in pickleball, it was the first year doing roll-up courts, very impressive and great vision. And that turned into, I want to build the grand slams of pickleball. And that turned into, wait, I'll build an entire pathway system. Turned into, okay, but let's complement this and build the world's most affordable paddles to make sure that everyone can play the game. I hate to see what you're going to do next year. Do you have any other vision or plans that you want to tease to our audience, and what else is going on in your head?
I think next year is about execution, right? And next year is about taking care of all the things that we've announced and making sure we do them well.
Yeah. How big is your staff?
Not big enough. We're hiring regularly, not big enough.
Gets the picture. Right. We've got, the 4 majors of golf. We've got the Grand Slams of tennis, and people are very familiar with the French Open, Roland Garros. Apparently no one can decide what that's called, the Australian Open, etc. What are the Grand Slams that you will be running this year? Because we've talked a lot about India, but you're more than just India.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we looked at what would anybody do to, if given an opportunity in any sport, right, where would you go? What are the locations that you would, position these sports in? And, the first and foremost, the first answer that came to us was Middle East, right? Middle East doesn't have a base of pickleball players at this point, right? There's no, the sport is very small in the country, but, of course, we're helping build that. But as an event destination, you've got UFC happening in Middle East. You've got Formula One happening in Middle East. You've got, NBA off seasons happening in Middle East. You've got everybody. From a sporting perspective, there's a lot of, the World Cup happened in Middle East. Now, there are question marks from a sports washing point of view. But, for us, we thought about where do we want to bring the event if we were to create like the World Series of the aspirational events, where would we want to do it? So Middle East was, automatically the first and foremost kind of answer to that. And that's where our first event is going to be in Dubai in February. Then we asked about what are the sporting cities in, let's say, in Europe, right? What are the cities which have a background to sports, a background to tennis, a background to paddle, a background to, and then we also have a very interesting association happening within that country. But yeah, I mean, that's where we thought that, okay, Madrid is a country where, it's a hotbed for paddle, it's a hotbed for tennis. Spain as a country, and why wouldn't we then position ourselves in Madrid? And
then let you go on that.
What, Kristen?
Oh, he was just correcting that. He said Madrid is a country. I was like, yeah, we're going to let you have that one.
The city of Madrid.
I didn't even catch that. It's 7 a.m. here. So.
And Jill lived in Madrid.
And I lived in Madrid.
Right. So I mean, Madrid. I mean, when I say countries, I meant the country has an ecosystem. There's a Marca Cup happening there, right, with tennis.
Yes.
Which is already an established pathway for tennis, right? The Hexagon Cup for paddle, which happens in Spain, right? So I mean, we thought that if we bring the sport of pickleball to Madrid, I think automatically, and there's already a lot of Rafa Nadal's academy in Mallorca has one pickleball court to start off with, and then there are other places where pickleball is picking up in Madrid. We just had a couple of the Duper Nationals as well as in other nationals in Spain that just happened, where a lot of players, international players, went and played. So I believe Madrid is a great kind of a city to bring the sport to, and then the Spanish culture for racket sports. What table tennis and badminton is to India is tennis and paddle to Spain. So I think that's where we went next. And then the event capital of the world, right, with Vegas. You you want to do an event in Vegas. It's a dream to do an event in Vegas, but it's not just a dream to do any kind of event in Vegas. You want to be at the Sphere. So that's the dream, right? Like that's where we want to put it, basically. So
wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we looked at it, and that's how we decided on the places, basically.
To be clear, we don't currently have an event planned in Vegas at the Sphere, but that's the vision.
We do have an event, and we are speaking to bring it to the Sphere for at least one day.
Wow, that's a bombshell. I haven't heard that one yet. Had you, Jill?
I knew we had an event, one of the PWR majors in Vegas. I did not know. But we've been in talks with the Sphere. How cool. Exciting. That's Pran. Okay, that's super exciting.
We've got Dubai, Madrid, Vegas, and then India and China.
And then, I mean, we've got line of sight for these 3 events. We're still figuring out the 4th, whether it's going to be India or China. And 2025, we may do 4 or 5. Eventually the idea is to do 6. But in 2024, we might just do 4, basically start off with. Just a lot of coordination, a lot of efforts to bring it to life in all of these cities.
And are all of these sort of series events, multi-week, kind of everyone goes there, stays, they play multiple events, and it's like a mini season?
Not really. It's like a 7-day kind of an event, basically, with the team event happening essentially, and then moving on to the next city. So that's how.
So pretty similar to how we've known, just a longer week versus a 4-day week. Very cool.
Correct.
And Pran, tell us, last question. Tell us about the India League. I think I signed a letter of intent the other night. Didn't even know I didn't really know what I was signing, but I was like, yeah, I want to go to India for 3 weeks and play a team league concept. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got January. So, I mean, part of the pathways is to create these, team event concepts, because obviously the World Series has a team event concept as well. So, we wanted to create the pathway team event concepts, and India kind of being our home country, we wanted to do something great in India, and we were very lucky to have great team owners. We've got support of some great team owners, and we're going to be announcing them in the month of October. We've got some great celebrities tied up with the team owners, just like MOP in the US. But these are Bollywood celebrities, and within their right, superstars within the country. And we've got Andre Agassi coming down to India to flag it off in December. The draft is going to take place in December. So the letter of intent that you signed off on is essentially saying that you will be available for those 3 weeks in India. I mean, for the US players, we've got a shortened 2-week period, but for the other Asian players, we've got 3 weeks. Now, primarily why we're saying 3 weeks is because we need 6 days with the media for you guys. We need to give them a lot of interviews, and then also with the team owners, to have camaraderie. Also to for broadcast, to have all the content that they need, when you are on TV. So that's why it's built into a 3-week kind of concept.
I did not see in the letter of intent anything about me needing dance skills or Bollywood skills. I want to be really clear that that is not present in my repertoire. So I hope that doesn't affect my draft application. Rhythm. I have no rhythm, zero rhythm, Pran.
Once you land in India, you can ask Caitlin, you automatically start
to teach me. Okay, I need lessons. I need lessons ASAP. Well, I am so excited for that, and thanks for telling our viewers a little bit more about the India League and everything.
And I'll just quickly give you the format as well. We started off with a 6-team format, with 24 players, and we were overwhelmed by the kind of response we got, and there were a lot of US players who wanted to play on it. What that did was it disappointed a lot of the Asian players, because obviously, if with the Duper system right now and the ratings, they're still building it up. They're still getting there. We were going to do a 12 and a 12 team, 12 men, 12 women, 24 players in a team. So, and we were going to do a 60 member draft and 24 get drafted. We just announced yesterday that everybody who goes into a draft gets into the ecosystem, in the sense that the 6 teams still own like a Premier League and a Premier team and a Challenger team. Those 6 team owners will have a Premier team and a Challenger team. So all 60 players will get drafted. We didn't want the Asian players to be disappointed. So you'll either play, if you're part of the 24, you'll play in the Premier division. if you're part of the 36 remaining, you'll have a 16 member, and everybody gets their accommodation, travel, and there's some monetary benefit to everybody who come and play. So we wanted,
Super
we
exciting.
heard the players and we just got them. So this is the format. We've got 6 teams which are playing in the premier format, and then the same 6 team owners will have a challenger team as well, and the people will play in that as well. So
very cool. So it's a true sort of farm system where you have your own development squad that you can
Correct.
sort of bump players up as they improve,
as they progress,
cool.
and as they get better, and that translates into all of our events going forward, which we're holding in India and other places as well. So we have China, Vietnam, where we're doing Japan, where we're doing events. So all of those kind of, you can always be part of a team ownership or team, play under the aegis of a team, build fan base, create all of that. So that's what we're trying to do.
Very cool. Well, this was really educational. I'm really excited to see everything you are doing in 2025. Can't get here soon enough. Jill, I don't know if you had anything else, but Pran, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we are rooting on you hard. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And then you guys, don't forget, pickleball is joy.
Don't let anyone tell you differently.
We out.
We out.
This pickleball life.
I want a cool nickname on the thing. You guys have K-Dubs and Jilly B. I want a cool nickname.
No. Oh, you have something in your teeth, but you're facing that way.
It's on this side?
Yeah.
How's that ASMR? Misophonia.